Hi everyone, this is Brian Hayes and welcome to episode 24 of the Music Mind podcast. Today my special guest is Liam Ward, a wonderful blues harmonica player based in London. Liam has travelled the world with his harmonica, performing, recording and teaching this wonderful little instrument. Please enjoy my conversation with Liam Ward.
While I went down Louisiana, I ended up in jail. Yeah, I went down Louisiana now. You know, I ended up in jail. Oh, won't somebody help me? I got a $500 bail. Oh, down here in the deep south, the rules are black and white. Yeah, down here in the deep south, you know the rules are black and white. They say don't go mixing colors, boy. Don't you know that ain't right? I came to play the blues. I don't think that's a sin.
No.
I came to play the blues. I don't think that's a sin.
No, it's not.
But my heroes that I played with had a different color skin. When I get out of this jailhouse, they're gonna send me right back home. They did. When I get out of this jailhouse, they're gonna send me right back home. Well, I'll keep making my sweet music till the damn gone.
Well, hi Liam and welcome to the Music Mind podcast. It's great to have you here today as my special guest for episode 24 in the series.
Lovely to be here and an honour to be asked. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Our audience have just seen and heard a great duo performance that you did with Mark Cole of a song that I understand is an original composition called $500 Bail. Can you tell us a bit about that song, the genesis of how you composed that song, and also a bit about your memory of that performance, which I think was from 2021. Fantastic. It's beautifully filmed, beautifully recorded.
Yeah, so I believe that was filmed at a sort of COVID era festival where we we got booked to play this festival, and it was a few hours from home, and then obviously COVID happened and all of that, and we thought, well, it's not going to happen. And then they said, no, it is happening, and we thought, okay, they'll probably want us to film from home. And they said, no, we want you to come. We want you to play at the venue you were going to play at, but there'll be no one here except a film crew. So we turned up, and it was all, one-way system in and out of the building and all of that stuff, and masks and washing your hands and all of that. And there's a professional film crew there who are streaming it live, and we had to play to two guys and a few cameras, and pretend there was an atmosphere and try and get into the groove and into the mood. It was a really surreal and really strange experience, but we did get some good videos out of it, and it still gave people at home something to watch and a virtual festival in that sense.
Fantastic. It's beautifully recorded. And that's a great backstory. I would have never thought, you put so much energy, both of you guys are putting so much energy. I would have thought there was an audience of some description there, but I guess the two guys in the crew were your audience. But the song itself tells an interesting story. What is the background to the composing of that song?
So the song came from reading a book called Roots, Radicals and Rockers by the British musician Billy Bragg, who was kind of a bit of a punk in the in the 80s and wrote some great songs, and a bit of a socialist sort of activist sort of musician. But anyway, he wrote a book all about skiffle music, which I've never been a big fan of skiffle, but skiffle music was a big part of British culture in the 50s and really led to the whole British boom of music in the 60s, because it allowed people to believe that no matter their background and their upbringing, that they could play music, and it was a great democratization of music, and this book details all of that stuff, but it actually starts with the generation before, and it talks about jug band music and blues and jazz, and that's the stuff that I'm really into, the sort of American stuff from the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And so he starts by talking about that, but one of the things he mentions in talking about that is this British jazz musician, Ken Collier, who was a trumpet player in the 1950s, and he was around in London, and he'd always dreamed of going to New Orleans, and his reason was he was dead into the old Dixieland, the traditional jazz stuff, and he wanted to see if maybe some of his jazz and blues heroes were still alive. So he joined the Merchant Navy with that in mind.
Okay.
And they sent him all around the world, but not to America. Until one day they did. They sent him to America. They sent him to New York, obviously the wrong end of the country.
Yeah.
But he had his trumpet with him, and he made his way down to New Orleans. And he found not only were some of his heroes still alive, they were actually playing in little dive bars around the city. Which sounds familiar to me. I don't know if you played any dive bars in Brisbane. But, but he got to meet them and play with them. But the thing was, remember, this is the 1950s, so you've got segregation, you've got racism, Jim Crow laws, all of that stuff in America. And he was white and they were black. So he got to meet them and play with them, but he actually got put in prison for sharing a stage with them. So now he's stuck in America on his own, stuck in prison.
Yeah.
And what he did was he wrote home to his brother in London, and he told him about all of his adventures, and he's, languishing in jail, so he sort of keeps him occupied. And his brother writes back to him, and they have all this correspondence. What he doesn't know is his brother's getting all of his letters published in this national music magazine, The Melody Maker, back in the UK.
Yeah, I remember the Melody.
So everyone around the country who reads that is hearing these adventures. So eventually he gets his bail paid, and it was $500, which is obviously a lot of money then, especially for a musician, struggling musician. But it's paid. He's sent home and never allowed to return to America. But he did make a great career for himself off the back of this profile that he then had when he returned, because of these letters published in the Melody Maker. So anyway, I read this story and I thought that's a song. That's a song. So I just sort of put something together and told the story. But course, I tell it first person,
Yeah.
and I'm such a straight up sort of well behaved guy that people often say, surely that's not about you, and so I'll sort of tell the story and all that, but it is a true story, just not about me.
That's great. It's a great song. Now, Mark does a wonderful job at supporting you on the guitar, and you and Mark have done, I think, albums together and a lot of performing together. I just want to ask you about vocals. Like you're an amazing harmonica player, but you've got a good singing voice too. And Mark does a great job in that track. You do some lovely little harmony singing as well as the great playing. Where does vocals sit? Is vocals just something that you felt you've had to do, or how do you see yourself as a vocalist versus a harmonica player?
Yeah, I mean, vocals for me were and sort of remain an absolute necessity. It's very hard to get hired as a harmonica player.
Yes.
It's really tough, and it's really difficult to think of harmonica players who are hired to play harmonica and nothing else.
Yes.
No tambourine, to fill out a bit of the percussion, but most likely it's vocals in addition, if not something else, guitar or whatever. I mean, I've been lucky to meet and talk with a lot of my favorite harmonica players, and the only two that I can think of who travel the world just playing harmonica are Mickey Raphael, who's played with Willie Nelson around the world for 50 years. It's ridiculous. And he's a great country harmonica player.
Yes.
And Shane Sager tours with Sting. And again, he only plays harmonica.
Wow.
But beyond that, I struggle to think of harmonica players who don't have to do something else.
Yeah.
I mean, I would happily just play harmonica for the rest of my life, I do enjoy singing, but you spot on by suggesting maybe it was out of necessity.
Well, I think you do a really good job of it. I don't know whether you've read Charlie McCoy's autobiography, the famous Nashville harmonica player. It's a great
I've not read his book, but I met him and interviewed him in London, and he's a lovely guy.
His book is fantastic, but one of the things he talks about at length is when he first came to Nashville, he was sort of trying to be the next Elvis. So he had a Gibson Les Paul, and he managed to get an interview with Chet Atkins. And Chet Atkins at the time was head of RCA, top of the tree. So he rocks up and does a few of his, best sort of Chuck Berry and Elvis impersonations, and Chet, being a gentleman, said, yeah, look, thanks, no, nothing really for that. And sometime later, word got out that Charlie actually played the harmonica. Chet said to him later in life, had you have come around and played the harmonica, he said, I had 10 projects for you that I could have given you on the spot as a harmonica player. And of course, he went on to become, a very successful harmonica player specialist. When did you start? Was it always the harmonica? How did you start in music? How did it all begin?
I mean, my first instrument was drums. I had drum kit lessons at school.
Okay.
I mean, I never got to the point of playing kit with a band, but I did play snare drum in some Brazilian samba sort of parade stuff, because my stepdad ran a samba group, basically. Okay. So, I mean, it was kind of a community thing. It wasn't particularly high quality, but I did a bit of that. But drums always felt like a big responsibility to me, being the rhythm section, keeping the rhythm, being the heartbeat of the band. I felt, and I still feel, it's a huge responsibility.
I agree.
And somewhere down the line, I sort of, as a teenager, I gave up the drums, and then I found the harmonica, and I'd grown up listening to my parents' record collection, which was a lot of sort of 60s American folk revival stuff, and I was into Bob Dylan and Neil Young and Springsteen and stuff, and so I was hearing a bit of harmonica, and my mum got me for, I think it must have been, it was relatively late, my 17th or 18th birthday, a harmonica and some lessons with this guy just round the corner from me, called Matt Walkler, and he used to cycle round to mine in his Lycra and give me harmonica lessons. But I was at sixth form college at the time, so I was sort of still at school, and but I was learning harmonica and sort of getting lessons. And the thing with the harmonica was, as soon as I played it, it sort of made sense. I mean, there's many strange and baffling and frustrating things about the harmonica, but I loved the sound of it immediately, and I probably felt and knew at the time
that was it.
This is my thing. I mean, I'm interested in your perspective, because it seems you play loads of instruments. So is there one that you feel is your thing? I mean, it seems you're a reed player, but you also play lots of other things.
Yeah, look, it's a question I'm often asked, and I started out on the guitar when I was 8. I think if I was marched off to a deserted island somewhere, I think I'd bring the guitar, because whilst I'm a very, very casual vocalist, I do not see myself as a singer. The guitar is one of those instruments, a bit like a piano, but a very portable instrument that you can play lead, you can play rhythm, you can accompany yourself. So I wouldn't say it's my favourite, but I guess it's my foundation instrument. As for all of the others, it's whatever I feel like at the time. I've just recorded a track this morning where I played baritone sax, alto flute, and tenor ukulele on it. I loved all of them. If someone said, what was your favourite out of those 3? I loved every one of them, because they were the right sound at that point in that song, the sound I could hear in my head. Now, I've also had a go at the harmonica when I was a kid. I'll share this with you that, I was still at school, but I was probably 16. I had already been playing the flute quite a bit, and I'm a lifetime flute player, but I thought I'd have a go at the harmonica. And what I found is it completely ruined my flute embouchure. Just completely messed it up. And I was teaching quite a few people at the time, and I thought, it's one or the other. I've got to pick and choose here. Now, I was quite advanced on the flute, so the decision for me was, ditch the harmonica. But I loved the sound of the harmonica. Do you play chromatic harmonica? I know you're a blues specialist, but do you play what's been your journey with the harmonica? Always just the blues harps, or what?
Yeah, I play a little bit of chromatic. There's a few chromatics in my gig case, and they come out to gigs with me, and I do a little bit. My chromatic playing is really limited, and so what I'll tend to do is use it. Either learn a piece note for note, and it's just a sort of melodic thing that's a feature in a song. So I play with a jug band, a 1920 style band, and there's a few songs that suit the chromatic well. So I recorded them on chromatic, and I'll use chromatic if we do them live. Or I do a very common thing for blues harmonica players to do is to kind of fudge some chromatic playing by moving over a common thing they're doing on the diatonic. So for example, it's really common to, and I'm at risk of losing the viewers by going into nerdy harmonica stuff here perhaps, but because the diatonic harmonica has missing notes that technically you can fill in, but it's very difficult to use them as more than passing tones. You end up choosing certain keys of harmonicas for certain songs, depending not just on the key of the song, but if it's major or minor, that kind of thing. So you kind of use a little bit of knowledge about the relationship between different keys to be able to get around the limitations of the instrument, essentially. So for example, let's say there's a song in D minor, just a D minor blues sort of thing. I'd probably use a C harmonica. So you could use an F harmonica because that'd be the relative major, but it's more common just because of the note layout and because of the expressive capabilities to use a C harmonica, because C major and D minor are closely related. If not, that same thing. So you'll often hear, it's really common to hear, this is my C harp, kind of, and you'll hear a lot of octave splits. So it's also really common to then pick up a chromatic harmonica that's tuned around C, but has all the missing notes.
Yes.
Because you press the button and basically do the same thing. And then you've
Right.
got options of filling in the sharp and
Yes.
flats as and when you want to.
Yes.
So I do a little bit of that, but most of the time I'm on the diatonic harmonica.
Is that largely because of the
crazy.
ability to bend the notes more on the little blues harp? Do you know, to get that sound, or
you know, most of the time I'm playing blues or blues adjacent music, and
yes,
what people want and what I want most of that time is that expressive capability, because those bending sounds, they really are unique to this instrument. I mean, these days people are kind of muddying the waters, and it's an exciting time to be a harmonica player, because
Right.
people are inventing new and weird and wacky and wonderful versions of the harmonica that kind of muddy the waters between these two different types of harmonica.
Oh, okay.
But if we're talking traditionally, and it's still the case most of the time in most harmonicas, the chromatic won't give you bends in the same way. I mean, you can get the notes to, it'll move a little bit, but it's not gonna, you know, you're not gonna get like, there's one hole on the standard tuned diatonic harmonica where you can pick out 3 extra semitones that wouldn't be there naturally.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
and that means you can go.
Yeah.
You just can't do that.
Can't do that.
You can't do it.
No.
So they're different things. It's the way they're built.
Yeah.
And they have different strengths and weaknesses. And I've just
fantastic.
always loved the sound of the diatonic harmonica, the blues harmonica.
Well, let's have a listen to you play with another duo partner that you've seemed to have done a lot with, Benjamin Basford. And I want to play a clip, or a little bit of a clip, Little Wing. It's beautifully filmed in black and white. There's just Benjamin, in this case, Benjamin's doing the singing and playing the guitar. And I wanted to ask you that you do change harmonicas here, but when you're backing his vocals, I notice you've got, I don't know what key, he's in E minor on the guitar. But then for the solo, I think for the solo, you change harmonica. Is that one of those things you were saying just for the intricacies of the different keys and the harmonicas? Or do you remember why did you change in that particular one?
I haven't seen the clip for a long time, but from memory, if he's in E minor,
yes,
I'm probably using a D harmonica for the reason I just mentioned. So yes. D major and E minor being related.
Yes.
I probably was just doing it for dynamic effect. So if I'll grab a harmonica to demonstrate this.
Yeah.
A standard D harp, your range, I mean, you start at, so you've got up to, but you can get low tuned D harmonicas. So this is an octave below this one.
Yes.
So I was probably, for the vocals, playing just something lower. And then that gives you the chance for when you're taking a solo to really come in and smash.
That answers the question. I'm sure that's what it is. Let's have a look and a listen to a little bit of Little Wing, Liam and Benjamin.
Was walking through the night without socks and a mind, just running wild. I am moving with fairy tale, we're all in time. And she came to me when I was sad, with 1,000 smiles that she gave for me to free. Said it's alright, said it's alright, take what you want from the baby.
Now, you've been teaching the harmonica for years. How long have you been, I guess, at a professional level, offering lessons for harmonica players?
I mean, the funny thing is, I was kind of teaching almost from day one. So my first student was a guy called Jackson, who I met at university. So I'd only been playing a matter of months at this point. I'd go off to university, and there's a guy in my halls, there's a guy on my corridor who's learning the harmonica as well.
Okay.
And I'm kind of one lesson ahead of him. I realised straight away that I'm certainly not way ahead of him, but I know a little bit more than he does.
How good's that? Yeah.
So I started helping him out. I started teaching him, telling him what I knew.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed sharing
Yes.
and helping people if I can. So I started helping him however I could, and that kept going. And then I ended up picking up another student, and it kind of went from there. But in terms of how long have I been doing it, professionally, I'm sure I wasn't charging him. That was just helping a friend. But I've never had a proper day job. So
Right.
Since university, I've played music. I've had little part-time jobs,
Yes.
when I was younger. But basically, I've gigged and I've taught.
Yes.
And I've been doing YouTube lessons and having the website with the school and all that for, I suppose it's 12 years now. And that takes me back to kind of my early 20s. So it's kind of all I've ever known. But, things have changed even in that short time.
It's interesting, and I'll just share this with you, that tomorrow morning, my first student, I do a lot of teaching online, is a great tenor sax student of mine. And I said to him, oh, look, I'm doing a podcast with a really good blues harmonica player next week. He said, who? I said, Liam Ward. He said, tell Liam thanks. I've learnt so much from his YouTube videos. I didn't know, but he secretly is practicing the harmonica. And he said, it's fantastic. Your stuff is fantastic. So there's, on the other side of the world, a guy who just learns the saxophone but loves mucking around on the harmonica. So it's amazing the people you have helped. And you've got a site called learntheharmonica.com. 2 examples of your teaching videos, one from probably 10 years ago, where you're just teaching people how to play a little bit of Stand By Me, and another one much more recent, where you're talking about the challenge of moving around on the harmonica. So I might just play that clip. It's only short, but I'll play that now so people can get a feel for how you do approach the online teaching.
On an A harmonica, but feel free to follow the tab if you only got a C or a different key harmonica. And we'll start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. So, when the night has come, 5 blow, 6 blow, 6 draw, 5 blow, 6 blow. Hi, Liam Ward here at learntheharmonica.com. Recently I've had quite a few questions about moving around the harmonica. A lot of beginners wonder what to do once they've got single notes so they can play that kind of thing. When they try and move holes, it's gone, okay? They're not getting those single notes. So how do they go from
Do you offer one-on-one Skype lessons, or is it just by the nature of your life, is it only pre-recorded video instruction?
These days it's all pre-recorded. So I've taught a lot of students privately over the years. I mean, when I first decided music's going to be my thing, I'm not going to try and get a day job. My wife was a student at the time. She'd gone back to university, and so we had no income. So I was trying absolutely everything to bring in money, and the kind of the easiest way was to teach. And so at the time it was Skype. You know, it was kind of before Zoom, and everything was Skype. But I was teaching people all around the world. You know, I had students in Australia. So I was doing things. I was up early in the morning to teach them, and then I was up late at night to teach people in America or whatever, you know. So I was doing these incredibly long days. And then as I was doing more other stuff, as you say, gigging, I felt bad if I had to cancel a lesson because I was off doing a gig. And I couldn't say no to the gigs, you know. So it got to, I sort of took it down from 7 days a week to a bit less. And then I developed some online courses, and then COVID happened and I developed a lot more online courses. And it just seemed to make sense for me, but also to the students, because I did find that a lot of the time I was repeating myself, and I thought, well, I kind of know, give or take, what people are looking for and hoping for. So if I can give them that and they can access it whenever they want, repeatedly, they can go over it, that, you know, they can either buy it as a one-off or get a subscription, that kind of thing. Hopefully it means that they can have me kind of on tap. And then these days, my online school also has a forum. So if people do want to ask me questions or submit a video or audio, they can do that as well and get the kind of the personal back and forth as well. So that's kind of the way it's gone.
It's fantastic. It's a great business model, I suppose. And I mean, you've got on your YouTube site alone, I think you've had about 20 million views. So there's a lot of people have certainly checked out what you offer. You do read conventional music notation yourself, do you, or not?
I'm really bad at reading. I'm really bad because I basically grew up learning by ear, and that has always been my interaction with music. It's always been me and the music sandwiched together. Let's figure out what's going on with my ears. That said, I'm really passionate and really set on the idea that harmonica players, musicians in general, but harmonica players specifically, both because that's my thing, but also because there's a reluctance amongst harmonica players. I'm really passionate about trying to get them to understand the absolute basics. And listen, Brian, I'm talking the absolute basics. Yeah. Harmonica players have a specific, I think, tendency to avoid these things or become allergic to music theory. And I don't know quite why it is. I think maybe it's something to do with this often being considered a child's instrument, a toy that you get in a stocking at Christmas or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. And I think often people come to the harmonica having given up on lots of other instruments. So there's a tendency to be scared of music theory. So I'm really keen on trying to get people to just understand the basics, because you know, I was talking about which harmonica to pick up in order to play in a minor key. Things like that. If you don't know what you're talking about, and if you don't know how to work
what's a minor
out,
key,
you're buggered, you know, exactly. So,
that's right. Yeah.
So even just understanding the basics of scales and keys and you know, maybe even if you're a blues player, well, what are the arpeggios for these simple dominant seventh chords? You know, this isn't complex stuff.
No.
So the theory side of it for me is less to do with reading and more to do with a general understanding of the building blocks of music and how they can be useful in a practical setting.
And I can understand that because I do play multiple instruments that, I've got a pedal steel behind me there. Don't ever give the pedal steel player the sheet music.
Don't get me wrong. I wish I could read and read properly. And I have always felt that the best musicians have a feel and a good ear and also read really well. And I know musicians who do that, and I'm very envious of them. Sadly, it often ends up one or the other. You get people who've either learned by ear and can't read a note, or people who are very good at reading but are scared of improvising and scared of doing things on the fly. But there are plenty of musicians who do both and do well, and I'm sure you're one of them. And I wish I could do that. I've always played Hohner harmonicas ever since the start. So they were the first harmonicas I got hold of, apart from my absolute very first harmonica it came with a teach yourself book, and it was an absolute piece of crap. That is, you could barely get a note out. But then my first decent harmonica was a Hohner, and then since then I've tried others, but Hohner make really quality harmonicas. Other manufacturers also make great harmonicas, but I always loved Hohner, and I got used to the way they're made and the way they play, and I've played different versions of Hohners over the years, but I've kind of settled on a few that work really well for me. In terms of being an official artist, that's a relatively recent thing where we kind of had this conversation, which sort of went, well, they said, well, you're already playing our instruments. And I said, yeah, I love them. And they were like, well, you could be an official artist. You can be on our roster. And I was like, well, fine, that's good for me. The only thing that I stipulated was that we had to separate me as a player and me as a teacher, because as a teacher I try to be as open and essentially neutral and non-partisan as possible. So I said to Hohner, I need to have the ability and the freedom to review other products, to demo other products from other companies, and to talk about them. I can't have my YouTube channel or my teaching website be Hohner affiliated, because that's not what that's about. So I said, as long as it's me as a musician, as an artist, so I'll play harmonicas live, I'll record with harmonicas, and I'm happy to say I play them and talk about them, and every album I release I'll put them on the on the liner notes and all of that. So keep them as separate things. I mean, it just so happens that when I'm teaching, people will ask me, and I'll say, yeah, I play Hohners. But other harmonicas are great too, So I don't deny that, and I'm always open and honest about it. But I didn't want this situation where I couldn't say, oh, Seidel, which is another great German harmonica company, Seidel have released this new thing, and I want to tell you about it.
Fully understand
that. They're great. They're great people. It's a great company. I've been to the headquarters in Trossingen, which is in kind of southwest Germany, and I played on the factory floor. They still have a factory in Trossingen where they started 200 years ago.
Wow.
And these instruments, every one of these was made in that factory.
Yes.
And I got to go, and they said when we have a visiting artist, they often play to the workers. So they had a coffee break or whatever, mid-morning break. And I performed some songs on the factory floor with these people who have literally made the instruments. It was really moving for me. And, as I say, I've always played them. So knowing every instrument I've ever played was made there,
that's fantastic.
It was kind of it was something I never thought I'd have the opportunity to do, and it was an amazing experience.
Can you just talk for a little bit about what is it like for you playing in those smaller venues? You talked about you've done your time in the dives and what have you, but I guess making a living, you're lucky in one way that you're living in a country that has a decent sized population. You can hop on a plane and within an hour you're in just about anywhere in Europe. A typical gig, and you do a lot of different gigs, but is a typical gig just, a duo thing, just a low level, like a not much promotion? What do you find? Do you just turn up at a pub and just play for a couple of hours, or what's a typical gig?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. it varies quite a lot for me. So the duo gigs, yeah, a lot of them are pubs, bars, and it's pretty low key. And people may or may not be interested in what I'm doing. You know,
That's
it's
right.
not like it's not like
No.
it's not like I'm famous. It's not like the wider population,
No.
you know, are invested in me.
No.
But then I do a lot of other gigs. You know, I play a lot of clubs. So
Yes.
the clubs are different because people are paying to be there and they
Yeah.
know you're coming. And so
Yes.
with the jug band, I play a lot of jazz clubs, trad jazz clubs.
Yes.
And with my own blues band, I'm playing the blues clubs.
Yes.
Also playing festivals. And I've recently been doing a few more varied things as well. So last week I had a gig with a live karaoke band. So they were doing country tunes.
Okay.
But the idea is you get someone from the audience up to sing, and there's a song list that they can choose a song from.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of festivals, but also corporate dues and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm also going on tour next year with an Oasis tribute band because they're doing.
Yeah.
They're basically trying to replicate a show that Oasis did in 1996 at Nebworth. It was this big live show, and they had a harmonica player. They do theatres and art centres, so again, ticketed events, and also festivals. So the one I did with them recently was in Manchester, you know, home near where I grew up. That's kind of my home, and also where Oasis are from. And it was 5,000 people in a field, sort of big sort of festival.
Yeah.
So. It does vary a lot.
Bit of everything.
You know what it's like being a musician,
that's right.
day to day. It's one of the beautiful things about being a musician. Every day is different.
Well, let's have a little bit of a look and a listen to Ain't No Sunshine, Liam with Malcolm Thorne.
There ain't no sunshine when she goes, but she's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away, I wonder this time where she's gone. I wonder if she's going to stay. There ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home. Anytime she goes away.
Session playing. You've got a good service on your website that you just openly offer your ability as a session harmonica player, where you invite people, if they want some harmonica added to an existing track, to get in touch with you. How long has that been, I guess, one of the strings in your bow, that side of your musical life?
Well, so the thing is, when I started putting videos on YouTube, lessons and what would develop into my online school, my actual intention or hope with that was that I'd get some session work, because, you know, I was aware I was a young musician and, oh, well, session work, that's one of the ways I can make money. But how are people going to hear me? How are people going to know I exist and sort of book me for a job?
Yeah.
And YouTube was still relatively new. Well, not dead new, but it was still this sort of, you know, new-ish thing. And I thought, well, maybe if I just put stuff out there, people will find me and go, this guy can play harmonica, I'm going to book him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I won't just put playing. I won't just put me playing along to stuff. I'll put lessons, because maybe that will help broaden the reach. So
Okay. Yeah.
I'll sit in my bedroom up against the wall and talk about the harmonica and
yeah.
I I remember having this idea, which now I think, why did I think that? But I thought maybe this is going to lead to session work. So really, from quite early on, I was aware it was a possible income stream, and I was trying to get my name out there. The YouTube channel and all of that turned into something very different, and luckily people liked my lessons, and that led to actually a different form of work.
Yes.
But that was actually my intention.
So originally the intention was more or less like a talking business card. Hello, I'm available for sessions. Have a look and then book me. That's interesting. It went a completely different direction. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd seen a couple of people on YouTube teaching harmonica. So there was an American guy, Adam Gusso, and there was a French lady, Christelle Berton. They were the first two I saw. And it dawned on me that the internet is this huge thing.
Massive.
And YouTube was becoming bigger and bigger. And I thought, hang on, I know that these harmonica players in other countries that I didn't live in and didn't visit, I know they exist and I'm aware of them, and I think these are great harmonica players because they're putting lessons on YouTube.
Yes.
So I thought, well, I'll do that, and maybe someone will enjoy my teaching.
Yes.
But I thought that then that would lead to session work. It didn't, and I do now get session work, but I think it's probably just happened more organically.
Let's have a bit of a listen to just a little bit of your session reel. You've got a great little audio grab online there demonstrating the different styles of harmonica playing and the different styles of music. Let's have a bit of a listen to that. Liam, I get the distinct impression that you don't take yourself too seriously. You take your music seriously, but you seem to have a lot of fun. You're playing at a lot of different styles of venues and gigs. There's a classic moment where you're with, I think, just a trio, just the banjo player, a bass player, an upright bass player, and you're prancing around with a washboard strapped around you, and the banjo player and you decide to go for a little walk around the crowd. Let's just have a quick look at this here.
Yeah, so that's one of the many incarnations of the jug band. So the jug band is a trio minimum. So that's our bare bones, and then it can be 4, 5, 6, or even 7 sometimes.
Okay.
But that's the skeleton of the jug band. But I mean, it's interesting you say about not taking myself too seriously. I wrote a song and released a song recently called "Pack Your Sense of Humour" about just that. Not taking life too seriously.
Yeah.
Because I find if you do, life kind of finds a way of laughing at you, even if you're not willing to laugh yourself.
I agree.
But also, I mean, look, I'm under no illusions about my abilities. I would describe myself as a decent harmonica player and hopefully a decent teacher as well. But I'm not a virtuoso. I know many harmonica players who are way better than me. So I every day I wake up and feel fortunate to do what I do, to be able to make a living out of playing this crazy little instrument and connect with people all around the world. You mentioned a student of yours, who's seen my videos. And by the way, tell him he's very welcome and to keep going. I feel so fortunate. I mean, as an example, I was in Australia in January.
Yeah.
And I got to play on the thing called the Blues Train down near Melbourne. I basically got in touch with this band. I saw that this thing was happening whilst we were in Melbourne. Yeah. And I thought, this sounds great, playing in an old steam train, a whole evening of blues music. The punters buy a ticket and they get access to the 4 carriages on the train. One of them solo, and then you've got duo, trio, and band.
Ah, okay.
Anyway, I got in touch with this band, and they had a harmonica player already. So I said, look, I don't want to tread on your toes. Is there any chance I could come along and just play a tune? Because that'd be fun for me. I was there on holiday. I wasn't there working. No. It was like, but it'd be nice to play. Yeah. And the guy gets back and says, okay, yeah, great. Come along, bring your harps. Cool. So I end up playing all night with him. But at one point, the band leader, who's the harmonica player, calls this tune. It was a little Walter tune, harmonica legend, blues harmonica legend. And I think it was Rocker. I can't remember. It was a tune by Little Walter, instrumental. Yeah. And I said, look, I can't remember it note for note, but I'll jam it. It's a blues, whatever, And he says, well, you should remember it because I learnt it from your lesson. And he'd never let on when I messaged him and I emailed him. He'd never said he'd seen my lessons. He'd never said he'd bought any of my lessons. But it turned out he'd learnt the song from me.
That's amazing.
And the thing is, I learn them, I teach them, and then I forget them. Absolutely. Most of the time. 100%. I love working out a tune. Yeah. I love it. I love the challenge. I love getting it learnt, and I love being able to produce it. But I've taught so many things over the years that I've forgotten most of them. But it was just lovely that someone literally the other side of the earth and he played it really well, which was lovely as well. Because I know my own limitations and because I feel so fortunate, I don't know how to take myself any more seriously than I do, because what I do is fun and it's not overly serious. It's music to me is a passionate, wonderful, emotional thing, and it can be, as you said, I take my music seriously in one sense, but I have the luxury to do something that is just at times absolutely ridiculous. I mean, like you mentioned the washboard. With the jug band, I play washboard, I play jug, I play bones, spoons.
But you also do something
musical saw.
You also do something that I've never seen before, and I need to put a disclaimer for those watching at home, particularly the kids, to not try this at home. But if I ever wanted to give an example of you not taking yourself seriously, let's have a look and a listen to you playing a wonderful solo, a no hands harmonica solo. Liam, that's fantastic, and I'm sure there's many doctors viewing who would probably not recommend that people do that, but a great sense of humour. You talk about the pecking order and all of these things. The question I'm most commonly asked when people ask me is, how do you play so many instruments and play them so well? The answer's simple. I've never set out to be a virtuoso on any instrument I play. I don't want to be the world's best. I don't even want to be the 25th best in the world. All I have ever wanted to do is be a good musician, have fun with my music, and be able to play what I hear on the instruments. That's it. There's a million people who can play every instrument I play thousands of times better than me. But like you, I'm constantly getting people saying, Brian, could I have a lesson from you? I love the way you play that. And I'm thinking, look, I actually taught a guy in New York jazz saxophone for about 6 months, as if there's not a few other people that could teach him jazz saxophone in New York.
Maybe people want to learn from you because perhaps you found your own voice, So for me, I did want to be the best harmonica player ever. At some point, starting out, I did want to be the best.
Yes.
Down the line somewhere, I've accepted I'm never going to be the best because it's not just putting the hours in. One thing is I started pretty late, but two, I think some people just think a certain way. Some people are geniuses. I'm not a genius. Some people are, they have a certain way of approaching things, and they have an ear that is beyond anything, or they have understanding beyond everything, or they just have a different way. They take things from a different angle, a different way of seeing things, and therefore they produce things a different way. I've kind of accepted that I'll never be the best in the world, but my aim now is to try and find a voice, try and find a way of playing my instrument that is distinctly me. And maybe that's why you're in demand. Maybe people hear that in your playing.
Do you strike, or have you struck, or do you continue to strike sort of resistance from people who might be thinking that your blues is not the blues that they think it should be? Have you struck that, or are they basically leaving you alone nowadays?
I have had that, yeah. And the thing is, I never felt comfortable trying to be a traditional blues guy. I love the old acoustic country blues. I love the 50s and 60s Chicago blues. Yeah. I love it all.
Yes.
But I didn't grow up in Mississippi. I didn't grow up in Chicago. I'm a middle-class white kid from England, and I've had the experiences I've had.
That's right.
We all have blues in our life, but it's how you express that. And so for me, I never felt comfortable doing the sunglasses, the suit with the massive lapels, all of that sort of. That's not me. That is not and will never be me. And somewhere down the line as well, I realised that you have to give the audience the respect they deserve. And audiences are not stupid. People are not stupid. People can tell if you're not being authentic. Now, everyone performs when they're on stage, but you have to be a version of yourself. Even if it's just a little bit of what you do, a little bit of it has to be you.
Absolutely.
And the more of it that's you, that you can still use in your performance, the better, because people can tell when they're being lied to and when something isn't quite right. So I realized I can't be the sort of old-fashioned traditional blues guy. The songs I write have to be about things that I can relate to. They have to be things from my life, or I have to tell someone else's story and tell it, like the $500 bail. Yes, I'm not going to write songs as they were in the 50s or in the 20s or 30s.
No,
the form might remain, but certainly the stories as part of them and my style of playing will be my own. I've just had to accept that a lot of the blues community will reject me, and that's fine. And you just have to hope that you'll find the audience that does enjoy you. More often than not, the middle-aged housewives prefer me to the old blues guys, which are the typical blues audience. But that's fine. If that's who I appeal to, fine,
But the type of blues you're playing, it's very contemporary, but it's respectful. I can remember playing out in public, and if you're playing to a general audience and you put in any chord other than major or minor, some dude would come up and say, "Stop playing that university music." Can I play a seventh? Can I just play something? And there's always going to be those people. But I think finding, you are finding an audience. I actually want to play this wonderful track, going back to you with Mark Cole again, called Midnight Motorway Blues. This one really resonated with me. I think any musician who has packed up on a rainy night, late at night, and just wants to get home at the same time when the road workers have decided this is our moment to completely rip up the roadway. And the message that is this, who wrote this song? This is wonderful.
So me and Mark wrote that song together. So I had this idea of writing a song about not being able to get home at night. Yeah. And for some reason, I hadn't even thought of the alliteration midnight and motorway. I was calling it late night motorway blues. And Mark came up and said, oh, no, it's got to be midnight. But Mark, here's the thing with me and Mark. Mark's more experienced than me, and he's a better songwriter than me. And what I'll often do is take an idea to him, and I'll have sometimes it's a very basic idea. Sometimes I've almost written the song. Yeah. But Mark will always improve it.
Wow.
He'll find a way of twisting something or changing some lyrics that just really improve it, or just suggesting a middle eight that goes somewhere different or whatever. So I love playing and working with Mark. And by the way, Mark's a great multi-instrumentalist, including being a harmonica player. So we often finish our set with a harmonica off sort of thing. But we wrote that one together, and then we drove round his hometown of Gloucester, which is just up the road from me, and filmed a video, where we're kind of, this is, trying to get home sort of thing.
Oh, this reminded me of that great series, the Carpool Karaoke videos, with Paul McCartney and everyone, all the great things. This is just, mate, you should be really proud of this, and your work with Mark is just wonderful. But this song, as soon as I saw this, it just related to me. And I know you're just mucking around in the car, but it's great harmonica playing. It's great singing. Both of you, your voices really blend well. Let's have a look at Midnight Motorway Blues.
Well, the show is over and it's time for us to go. But before we do, there's something that you all should know. As we get our coats and put on our driving shoes, got those midnight motorway blues. Life, well, it ain't so good. It's hard to get good sleep and eat good food. But the worst thing of all is something we can't choose. It's those midnight motorway blues. Midnight motorway blues. Highways agencies give me a frown. The road I came up is now closed down. They're telling me to go the opposite way. I'll be lucky if I'm home before the break of day. Makes you feel low. We can't stay at the venue and we can't drink no booze. Got those midnight motorway blues. Talking about those midnight motorway blues. Agency has given me a friend. if I'm home before the break of day. Driving around all night long. Oh. Midnight motorway blue. Just wanna get home. I'm cold and untied. Midnight motorway blue. Mr. Highways Agency man. Let me
Okay, Liam, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you? What's your preferred way for people to reach out and connect with you?
So if it's to do with my playing, my bands, my performances, then you can find me through the contact page at liamwardmusic.com. If it's to do with my teaching, then again, there's a contact page at my teaching site, which is learntheharmonica.com. I try and keep them separate, although people don't tend to think of it that way, but it makes it a little bit easier for me to know what I'm doing. You know?
Yeah. So, look, the other thing I'd just like to mention to the viewers is that at the moment on your website, you've got a fantastic offer where you just, if they put in their email address, they can get a free 20-track download, a compilation album, which has tracks across all your different iterations of your playing. There's fantastic songs in that. It's a really must-have. I really enjoyed it. So I just encourage people, while you are keeping that offer open, to, I think that's directly on your website, isn't it? There's an offer.
Yeah, if you head to liamwardmusic.com, I think if you go to the tour page, there's a form on there. I can't remember where else I've put the form on the website, but it's definitely on liamwardmusic.com. And then I'm also giving, at the moment, a free trial of my harmonica school. So if you go to learntheharmonica.com and go to the sign up page, there's a free 30-day trial. So if people want to learn the harmonica, they can also try that. And that's I've made loads of courses over the years, and basically you get them all. You can stream them whenever you like.
The harmonica is a serious instrument. Yes, a little kid can have a huff and a puff on it, and some old pensioner at the aged people's home can play, whatever it is. But if you really want to play the harmonica well, it's a serious piece of work. And you do play the harmonica really well, Liam. You should be very proud of what you're doing and what you're continuing to do with that humble little instrument. Is there anything, have you got any projects coming up that might be of interest, or anything you just want to tell the audience might be relevant?
I mean, I'm always working on something. I'm always recording, a new album with someone or other, or writing. Always thinking of new stuff to do with my teaching. I've got some exciting stuff next year that I actually not allowed to announce yet.
Okay,
because
that's
it's not
fine.
public. But the best thing is to just keep in touch on my social media, Liam Ward Music, all over social media and all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot coming up, but I'm always busy. I mean, Hohner, going back to Hohner harmonicas,
Yes.
I always send them an album when I release one, and they got in touch with me after I'd sent them the sort of fourth album in 6 months, and they were like, "We've never met anyone who releases the amount you do,"
Oh, it's really it's quality stuff. I suppose one final question. Now, you're still only young. What are you, in your 30s, or what sort of age group are you?
I just turned 36.
Okay, so still a young fella, but you've been, I guess, earning your living now for what, 20-something years, or how long have you been?
As I say, it's kind of all I've ever done.
Yeah.
So certainly 15 years, and before then I was just bumming about, not really doing much. Certainly didn't have a proper job.
Yeah. Now, a whole variety of people watch this podcast, including school-aged people who are at that stage, like all of us. What do I want to do? They're kicking me out of school soon. I've got to find something to do. I love music, but everyone says what a hard road the music career, making a living as a musician, is. Looking back at what you've done and how you've done it, what would be your best piece of advice? Not necessarily to a harmonica player, and anything player, someone who loves music and is currently doing it part-time. They're at that stage, they've got to make a decision. They're going to leave school. Are they going to go and study music at a university level, or play? What's your thoughts? You've been there and done it, and you're still doing it every day. Have you got any advice that you might just pass on to someone?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's an easy question for me to answer because people ask this quite a lot. And for me, it always comes back to one thing that, at least from my perspective, seems to be the central tenet of being a musician, and really, more broadly, being successful in whatever you do. And it's maybe will surprise people, maybe people will disagree. Regardless of music and business being considered creative and improvisational and out of the box and all of those things, the one thing that I think is most important behind anything else, and it's a boring thing, is being organised and reliable. And I think this is especially true in music because so many musicians aren't organised or reliable.
Correct.
But I think that's why I've been able to make a career in what I do. Because I'm not an outstanding virtuosic musician, but I am organised and reliable. And I've always been organised and reliable. So if I say I'll be there, I will. And I will plan things, and I still have, and I've done this since day one, planning meetings, management meetings with myself.
Yeah.
I don't have a boss, but I have meetings where I'll go over what I've been doing and plan what I want to do in the future. And I'll have, my plan for the upcoming month or the year or 5 years, whatever. So I'm organised and I'm reliable. And I've also felt this from the other side as a band leader and as someone who's employed people for jobs. You want a bare minimum ability. Ideally, you want the ability to be great, but mostly you just want someone who'll turn up on time and do the job. And so my advice to people is, by all means, work on the craft. Get as good as you possibly can. But remember that the person who gets the job is probably the one who answers the phone, answers the email, and is courteous and polite and respectful and not arrogant and turns up on time and does it.
Fantastic advice, Liam. Really good practical advice. Mate, we're going to go out with a collaboration. One of the great things about doing this podcast is I get to play with every one of my guests. And you and I came up with a great little blues. We've just called it the UK Oz Blues. You play some wonderful harmonica. I get to play a little bit of lap steel. And a real honour to talk to you today and also to play with you on this collaboration. I really appreciate it. Thanks, mate.
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking me.